What's going on, Generals? It is Nick here from the BI Edge. Today, we will be covering the Northern Territory petroleum industry. Now, what we'll be looking into here is we will be looking into the different applicants of the leases in the petroleum industry across Northern Territory today. We will be looking at which operators historically have dominated this market. We will be looking at the producing petroleum-based wells in the Northern Territory, both past and present, and looking at the average drilling depth for those wells. We will be looking into petroleum reserves, what that sort of looks like in terms of total lease size, and talking about how much the Northern Territory government has there. And finally, we will be wrapping up with a little bit of seismic in that area, the historical 2D seismic shot from 1961 to 2023. Now, this data today was extracted from the Northern Territory government website. So all these insights will be just purely data driven. We're just going to be going just off the data. Um, there can be some errors in the data. So this video is just for educational purposes only. No investment decisions or business decisions should be made based on this video. Own independent research should be conducted. Okay, and finally, we will be looking at a bit of a drilling analysis there to sort of have a bit of a look at who's drilled the most wells throughout history in this particular state. And this will be our last state for the petroleum, scaling the Australian petroleum industry series before we amalgamate the larger states and scale the whole Australian market to look at sort of determine future energy security based on data and sort of have a bit of a look at what's sort of happening in terms of exploration in the petroleum industry. Okay, strap yourselves in and I hope you enjoy today. All right, guys. So just starting off here, we are going to come back a little bit to applicants. Okay, so Northern Territory lease applicants in the petroleum sector is what we are going to start on here. So first up, we've got the total number of applicant leases by operator here. So this is the percentage of the market by total number of applicant leases from inception through to present. I believe once that loads, I will have a better idea. But yeah, you can see there's the applicant years. So it'll be inception to present or 98 there to present. So that sort of just gives us a bit of an idea there as, who's got the most leases over time, over the last sort of 25 years. So we can see Australian Mining and Exploration, Tidal Services Proprietary Limited, 40 leases, 29 here for Imperial Oil and Gas, 16 for WISO Energy, and ADZ Energy 14. Okay, if I want to have a look up here, I can see the total area in square kilometres for these particular operators in the petroleum industry in NT. So if I look at WISO Energy here, I can see, okay, that's pretty serious there. They've got 16, that's 16 lease applications there. So what that tells me here is that these guys here, these top three, Santos Quadrant, Australian Mining, and WISO Energy, are three of the largest applicants in Northern Territory in terms of the total lease size. So they really have pushed the exploration in this particular sector over the last 25 years. If we just want to know, okay, like last year, who was there? Okay, it's a bit of a different story, right? We can see that the lease applications have sort of changed a little bit. They're quite low here, 40 square kilometers. But if we go to 2020, right, look at this. This is huge. You can really see here that, they're taking out 822 square kilometre leases, and so forth, or they're applying for these particular leases with the government. This doesn't necessarily mean that they've been granted, but they're putting in applications for these leases, which would make me think that the exploration was higher throughout this particular period. And before this, there's no data until 2012. Okay, but I would suspect here pre-GFC there was quite a lot, but 2011 you can really see the numbers are a lot higher. Um, yeah, 2009 not a lot post GFC, and GFC not a lot. If we're looking at pre-GFC, you can sort of see, okay, yeah, numbers weren't crazy. So based on this, your applications 2020 was quite high there, which is interesting. So we just want to have a look at companies now. We can go Santos Quadrant, going over here to the table at the bottom of the screen. I can look at all the different lease titles here that they've applied for. Um, so we can sort of see the whole type here. Are they managing it, or are they just an applicant for that particular lease? Some of them they've applied for, um, some of them up for revised application. As you can see here, what application year they put in for these particular leases. So that just kind of gives us a bit of an idea there as to what's happening in the lease application sector within Northern Territory for petroleum. Okay, so coming across next to Northern Territory historical petroleum leases, 1955 to 2023. This is really sort of looking into it now on um, what areas have who have been the biggest players in terms of holding the largest leases in terms of area within this particular region. And we can sort of see that straight away that the Northern Territory government has been really dominant here as a leaseholder um, for petroleum leases in this particular sector. They've held, a couple 8 different leases here, but they've had nearly 16K worth of square kilometres of leases there, but none of which are still active, which means that's probably been sort of cut down a little bit. Um, so this kind of paints a little bit of a picture here as to, you know, who's had the most historical petroleum-based leases, looking into the Northern Territory government and why they've had such a large presence in the Northern Territory petroleum market would be something of interest if you're going to explore that particular region in terms of looking for commodities either in petroleum or in the emerging market sector in the form of renewables. So next, Northern Territory current producing petroleum wells. So over here, we can sort of we can see that Pacific Oil and Gas Proprietary Limited, 40 leases there in terms of, the current producing wells. So that's everything here. That's including abandoned, completed, production, shut-in, okay? So if we just want to know what just producing, I've got to hit production here and filter that out. Okay, and now I can see who is the big player here in Northern Territory in terms of petroleum production, based on the number of leases again, because I don't have all the production-based measurements here. But I know that based on the number of leases, Santos Limited is a big player in this market. Mooney Oil Proprietary Limited, Central Petroleum, X Oil Proprietary Limited. Okay, and that sort of uncovers what is sort of happening here. So if I just want to go Santos again, come down here, I've got my different lease titles and I can look at this and go, okay, the well status is all production here. So it's all producing. This is who they're doing business with as far as their drilling contractor. So I can see that these guys got a fair few, these guys got 2, etc. And then I can look at the average of the total depth. Okay, so if I'm looking at a deeper drilling depth, maybe that could be, it could suggest offshore. I'd have to check in with an engineer that works in, say, drilling and completions. You can look at all the different well names here to connect the well name with the lease title, sort of uncover a little bit more information. Now, let's just say, for example, you were looking for an opportunity in the renewable energy sector, and you wanted to look at some shut-in operations in this region to potentially find some old facilities that you can revive and inject some capital inflow into, where you can sort of use an old facility with old roads that used to be petroleum for your renewable energy project. You might even have some surveying or some seismic-based data in this particular location that was conducted for the petroleum industry that you can now use to extract your commodity, whether it be lithium, nickel, could be copper, whatever it is. Um, and you might go, okay, well, I'm looking at what wells have been shut in. And I have a bit of a look at this next, and I go, okay, well, what's been shut in? Mooney here, they've had 10 shut in, okay? And you can then go and have a look at all the different well names here, okay, and look at the lease titles and with that back, and you can see who they've worked with and as far as drilling contractors go, and then you can start getting some available information there. Okay, so that's not a bad one there. If we want to look at abandoned too, this sort of might give you a bit of an idea as to where there might be some more potential leases that you can sort of pick up. Um, so all sort of good things to have a look at there. You can go by basin here too and just narrow it down a little bit more. If I'm looking at this, I think Eromanga is sort of something. Oh, it's got a little bit there, not a lot. This one here is a big one. So Bonaparte, yeah, a bit there too. So yeah, you can sort of look at the basins there and really narrow down, what's in what basin. Okay, next one, Northern Territory current petroleum reserves by total lease size. So this is just, reserves that the Northern Territory government have on what titles, what year they started in, and the total size of that lease. So you can see here that, um, that's sort of come down a little bit there in terms of the lease size of the reserves, which would make me think that exploration hasn't really been as strong sort of post-COVID within this particular market for petroleum. Um, so yeah, it could be to do with tighter government regulations. Once again, it's something you'd have to sort of look into around this. But what the data sort of tells us is it's like, okay, well, let's ask ourselves this question and do a little bit of research down that pathway. And where is there potentially a business opportunity here to capitalize on or to form a startup by using this data and using data-driven decision making. So next we've got the NT seismic industry here. So for this, uh, what I'm going to be looking at is we've got 1961 to 2023 here. So it's over a 62-year period. So if I just want to look at the last 20 years, okay, let's just go 2003. Okay, there's still 2 years there that we don't know, but based on this, we can sort of see. All right, so I've got here that um, you can see that Geoscience Australia has had a large presence here within the Northern Territory as far as seismic dot has gone in the 2D. They've shot over 3,000 um, kilometers there. So that's pretty substantial. And then you look down here at Santos, another big one there. Okay, and Hess Australia, and so forth. Okay, geoscience more down here, geoscience Australia. All right, so if I look at the uh, by basin here next, okay, I can go, okay, well, what basin was that in for who? And I can come down here and have a look at the start year and how much was shot. Okay, so I can see that Santos worked a bit with Velsize here in 2013 for some of their processing, for their contracted processing. So there's an acquisition phase in seismic, and then there's processing. So acquisition is acquiring the data and providing the survey service to, say, the lease or the mining site to the operator. And then from there, there's also a a processing phase where that data then gets processed. Okay, so this is just looking at the amount sort of shot here, and what operator shot the most seismic in this particular area, and that is consistent with what we sort of saw. These names of Pacific Oil and Gas and Santos Limited. That's consistent with the big players within the petroleum market here throughout this period that we saw in the previous dashboard, which would make me think that there's a correlation there between, you know, uh, operators or petroleum companies that uh, are sort of larger in terms of their lease exploration. They're more open to, getting those seismic-based services. So that's kind of interesting there. If I just want to look at the last sort of 5 years or the 5 year period, 2018 to 23, see there that there wasn't as much sort of seismic shot comparatively to say like 1980 to I don't know 1990. So yeah, you can sort of see that different periods here. You've got more or less. Okay, and if we go to the next graph here, okay, I've just got the average along here. Okay, this is the history from 61 to 23, the total seismic shot in the Northern Territory across these years. Um, I can have a look here at who the contractor was that acquired this data, so who got the seismic surveying on the lease, and then who processed it here. So, if I want to look at let's just go down here, have a bit of a look um, at geokinetics, for example. Okay, they did just a small one, a high size. Okay, it's done a small one. So it's quite a lot of different places here doing the processing. Santos doing a little bit of in-house processing there. Okay, got a few double ups. But if we're looking at just who acquired it, um, I can look here and go, okay, what did geokinetics do? Once again, it's a lot of different providers here, a lot of different companies within the market. I want to look at where Terex sat, you can see the work that they've done here, a few different Terexes. Yeah, so you can sort of see that they've averaged 618 across all their jobs here. They've provided quite a lot of different surveys here throughout this period. And they've been going through from 2005 to 23 in this particular data set. So I can sort of then have a look at, you know, which um, which companies are the major players within this market as far as providing those services go. Once again, if you're in the renewable exploration-based industry, you can then liaise with these companies that have this data, both operators and the contractor that acquired it or processed it, to draw some of those interpretations on where to drill or where to extract the commodity from the ground. Okay, so but there you can sort of see that we're looking at the line graph, sort of dried up a little bit here, but 2013 was the big peak in Northern Territory. Another one here at 92, 1980, and 1965. So every sort of 12 to 15 years, apart from here from 92 to 2013, there was like a 20-year period here where there wasn't a lot. So that can happen within this particular industry. Okay, so Northern Territory, last slide here, we've got drilling petroleum analysis here next. So I've got all the different lease titles here. I've connected a few different data sets here together via a schema. So what I can do now is I can have a bit of a look at, okay, the Northern Territory government. Okay, there's not much information there, but if I want to look at Central Petroleum, I can have a bit of a look here and go, okay, well, what did they do? What was the average elevation? Okay, it was 597. Look at the year granted. Okay, there's some empty data there. I didn't remove that Power Query because that would have got rid of all the data from the other columns. So we've just sort of left that here in this data set. year seized, I can see, okay, what year they seized operations in and, what was the name of this well. Okay. So that just sort of allows me to get a little bit more insight here as to what's going on in this particular market if I want it. Um, Now, let's just say I want to look at exploration. What sort of happened in exploration? So there's a lot that's not recorded here, which means there's a lot of empty data in this data set. We look at production, Central Petroleum. Okay, so they've been a main producer here as far as the drilling data set goes. We look at development, Central Petroleum again. Okay, and you can see that some of these was only seized in 2024, which would make me think that they're still a major player, and you definitely know that they're a major player because you can see the appraisal here with Imperial Oil and Gas and some of the other companies that we mentioned before. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about is once again, we can look at shut in, what's been shut in, what's been abandoned. And that just gives you, once again, a little bit more information. What's the average elevation in these particular leases? Who held it last? Who was the drilling contractor? And what was the name of the well? Okay. All right, so that concludes our session for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this informed analysis and be sure to hit the subscribe and the thumbs up button if you enjoy these analytics. Look forward to catching you in the next video. Cheers.